Liam Winchester spent most of his life suffering from the harsh treatment of this cruel world. His father died when he sacrificed himself to kill a monster for the sake of the world that would neglect and enslave his family after his death and take away everything he ever worked for. His mother died during a monster attack. His sister contacted a disease that would slowly take her life. Hopes were lost when she reached the most dangerous stage of the disease. Now he needed millions of dollars instead of thousands. He was weak, he has no one to run to. Not even his clan agreed to help him because he was poor and weak. He gave up on everything. But then a system was activated. With this system he can inherit the powers of powerful being that once ruled this world. Gods, devils, powerful warrior, trillionaire that ruled the business world, and even mages. Join this exciting journey as we watch a trash bag ascend to become the greatest being the universe has ever seen. Chapter name: Painful Lost, Who allowed this cursed child into this place? A sinister voice emerged from a room within Crownwell Hospital. A middle-aged man dressed in a refined white laboratory coat stood tall, staring down at a young man in tattered clothes and a malnourished appearance lying on the ground. The middle-aged man, Dr. Crownley, stared at his two bodyguards with a dark glint in his eyes. "Do you want me to repeat myself again? What is this bastard doing here? Who let him in?" The two guards felt the power held in his eyes and immediately knelt on the ground to explain. "Sir, he was very adamant. We even tried pushing him out and we even gave him a beating, but he refused to leave. He kept saying it's urgent. He even forced his way inside." Crownley hissed. Then he turned his attention towards the figure on the ground, who was a humanly definition of severe poverty. He was dressed in rags and his body stinks of so many foul smell. The sweat dripping from his face turned brown after mixing with the dirt he has on his face. "Liam, how many times have I told you not to come to my hospital? I would have killed you if not for the fact that your father was my half-brother. You better be grateful and leave immediately before I change my mind." Liam struggled to look up at Crownley and spoke in a weak tone. "Uncle Crownley, please help me with just $10,000. I don't care if you take over all the magical artifact my dad worked for or his inheritance. Please just lend me this amount of money and I won't ever disturb you anymore." Crownley's eyes turned cold once he heard those words. "Magical artifacts your dad worked for? What do you mean worked for? Your dad was a weakling. He couldn't even use magic properly and his martial arts skills are trash grades. You should be happy that he lived till that age because I was the one always saving his ass on every expenditure." "But, uncle, my little sister. She is very sick. You said you won't help me heal her, so please borrow me the money. I don't want to lose her." Why should I care? Because we are family, My father always fought to bring this family back together. He died trying to unite the family once again. He wasn't bothered about the inheritance they took from him. He just wanted to make peace. Please, Uncle Crownley, help me." Liam started sobbing. The pain of losing a loved one suddenly clenched his heart, filling him with a bizarre emotion. If Crownley won't lend him the money, then his life after here would be total hell. "You little twerp. You and your bastard sister can die for all I care. I won't give you 10,000 simply because I want you two to die. You two are the only trash in Crownwealth clan." Liam kowtowed with his forehead touching the ground. "Uncle Crownley, please, I will pay back the money as soon as I can. She is nearing the deadly stage of the virus already. Uncle, please. She is only a kid. You can throw all the grudges you have for my father on me and I promise not to retort. But please help Bella. I don't want her to die." Crownley paid deaf ears. The Crownwealth clan is one of the strongest clans in Uldra Nation. They have amassed more than $100 trillion and even have the highest number of magic users in the country. How would he let some trash like Liam live? He turned towards the guards and gave a stern warning. "If I find this brat here in the next 2 minutes, you two would have to take all the blame, and you know I never play with my punishments." "Yes, sir, we would do as you say." The guards saluted. Crownley turned his back against them and walked inside his comfy office without even bothering to give Liam a tiny bit of hope. The guards looked at Liam with pity in their eyes. Just 5 years ago, he lost his father, who was trying to save Uldra Nation from a monster. Last year, his mother was killed by a monster that escaped from a dungeon. And this year, his only sister contacted Andro 2023, a deadly virus that will keep them in a sleep-like state till they draw their last breath. Even $100,000 would not be enough to threat them at the early stage. Nevertheless, they have no saying in the affairs of their master. They did as he said and dragged him out, then throw him outside like a thief. Several hours later, a young man could be seen on the road crying bitterly. He has a really handsome face, but his face and body was covered in dirt. He is no other than Liam Winchester. He arrived at a very small house made with materials of the cheapest quality. He slowly opened the door and walked inside. The first thing he did was to check on Bella. He walked inside the clean she has been laying on for the past 2 months since she contacted Andrew, 2023, a young girl around the age of 13. Lay on the bed with a sickly appearance. Her frail body was covered in a thin blanket and her skin was pale. Her eyes were closed and her breathing was shallow and labored. At this age she should be vibrant, but instead she was frail and weak. If she is standing, strong wind might sweep her off her feet. Liam had a pained expression on his face when he looked at her. Bella is just 13 years old and Crownwealth clan is treating her like some plaque just because of her bloodline. They even refused to threat her despite owning the best hospital and the strongest healer in their ranks. Bella, I would do whatever it takes to get you back to your peak state again. Heaven is neglecting me too much, but I won't give up. Even if I can't use magic, I would try to learn some martial arts and travel into Dungoans and other worlds to slay monster and make the money to treat you. He thought to himself as he placed his hands on her forehead to check her body temperature. However, when his hands touched her head, he felt the coldness. Cold? Don't tell me. Bella, get up, let me bathe you. He brought his mouth close to her ears and whispered. Bella, wake up, he said again. This time his tone was panicky. He called for the 4th time and yet no response. His heartbeat increased. His legs weakened and he knelt on the ground close to her, his eyes tearing up. He called her name several times, but there was no response from her. The realization suddenly dawned on him. Bella has hit the critical stage of the virus where her body organs stop functioning. She is in a state that is far worse than coma. Liam's heartbeat increased. His heart thought of different ways to quickly find the money to buy VIT-678, the only drug in the world that can cure that disease. It costs $200 million a capsule. The only people who can make that amount quickly are heroes. But I have no ability, my body is frail, I have no mana core. The clan I belong to rather watch both of us die than waste their resources on us, Liam lamented. He needed to find a way, but in his case the way has been blocked by his inability to awaken superpowers. Nevertheless, at the same time, in the sky above the house, a small magical rift appeared. It was so tiny that it almost appeared like a morning star, but it was far from that. It was something more mysterious than the stars, something that can change destinies. Chapter name: Trail of Emotions. The formless rift suddenly formed a glowing orb that weightlessly floated toward the surface of the earth. It closed the distance in a short moment. Liam was still holding the hands Bella, weeping his heart out, when he was suddenly greeted with a dazzling light that almost blinded his eyes. He struggled to raise his head up and stared at the glowing entity. "What's that?" he asked inwardly. Nevertheless, before he could get his mind together, the glowing orb suddenly shot towards his chest. After the impact, his mind blacked out and his weak body fell on the ground unconsciously. Suddenly his eyes opened, but he was greeted with a new view. Liam struggled to lift his body up from where he was currently lying on, which was pitch black in color. "Where am I?" Liam let out with a panicky expression on his face. However, instead of his words dissipating into the void, they rebounded with an immense force, echoing across the entire space. A robotic voice sounded in his mind. At the same time, a window also appeared in front of him with the words he heard written on them. Liam stared at it with a perplexed expression, wondering if he was dreaming. But this was real. He can recall the nemesis that happened and the glowing orb that shot at him out of nowhere. Congratulations for completing the hidden quest to awaken the ancestral air system, a system created by the supreme beings granted to humans who completed certain hidden quests. With the help of this system, you can rise to the top of your world, become the richest and the strongest, but at the same time, it can also be your doom. Liam was still perplexed. What's going on? Where am I? No, your body is unconscious on the real world. Your consciousness is the only part of you here. For your second question, you are in the void of systems. Liam immediately thought of his sister and his resolve steeled. He nodded his head. Immediately his consciousness disappeared from the void of systems. When he opened his eyes for the second time, he was greeted with a new sight, one that he has seen before. In front of a beautiful mansion, a group of teenagers aged between 14 and 16 were bullying another teenager who appeared to be around 13 years old. The teenager lying on the ground was dressed in rags. His face was very handsome, but it was covered with dirt and bruise. "Humph, you should have been happy that young master only insulted your mother. There are far worse things that he can do to her. But still you have the guts to stand up for that slut of a mother. Humph, young master is merciful. You should be thankful to him, instead you had such a disgusting gut and went ahead to report him. Do you think those bunch of low-lives would lay a hand on him? Beat him up, he deserved to die." They kept yelling as they brutally dealt with the helpless teenager on the ground crying for help. Liam stood and watched with a deep frown on his face. That person on the ground was no other than himself 4 years ago. He felt like rushing toward them to save his younger self, but he knew that was impossible. He was just a consciousness here, and even if he has the chance to fight back, it won't mean anything. Just then the scene changed before his eyes. Now he was inside a beautiful playground staring at a lovely family playing and joking with each other while they watched the peaceful scenes of innocent children playing. "Dad, Mom bella." Liam stretched his hands with the urge to stop them. He recalled every event that would take place from now on. This was the same place and the same day that everything became chaotic for his family. A very strong earthquake took place, shaking the whole place. The ground divided and a blazing monster the size of a skyscraper emerged from it. The blazing monster let out a loud roar and sent large wisps of flames towards several locations in the playground. A fellow Winchester, Liam's father, panicked and selflessly helped everyone in the playground. He called several times for help from the League of Awakens, but there was no response. He decided to take down the monster himself after leading everyone out. Young Liam tried to stop his dad, but he gave him a lovely smile and leapt into the sky afterwards. Young Liam protested against the selfless action of his father, but it was to no good. A fellow Winchester body erupted with flames as he summoned his flame armor and a magical spear. He fought the monster bravely, but he was no match for the gargantuan monster. He was injured badly and on the brink of death. Nevertheless, he was able to use a risky trump card using his body as an energy vessel. He overcharged his body with flame mana and exploded himself on the body of the monster. Before he died, he gave Liam a thumbs up and a wide grin. Liam stood there and watched the whole scene once again. His heart clenched with grief as he watches this nightmarish scene once again. The scenes changed in front of him several times, revealing a scene that held so many negative import in his life, including scenes where his family were denied entrance into a supermarket because they weren't dressed richly and scenes where his uncles kicked them out of the clan. Liam stood with a pained expression on his face as he watched the very painful scene in his life over and over again. Suddenly, it turned pitch black once again. Ding, you have completed the trail of emotion and decision. Remark? Excellent. Hashtag chapter name. First Inheritance. Currently, Liam stood in a bright room with neon-colored walls that spread far and wide. It was like a world built out of computer codes, resembling a gaming world. Warning. Death here is equivalent to death in the real world. Be careful. Is this for real? Death here means death in the real world. Then I won't die here. He swore to himself and immediately selected the fireball skill and the newbie spear. Immediately a sword appeared in his hands and the spell model for fireball magic appeared in his head, and his brain speedily processed the information and got used to the procedures. Out of curiosity, he chanted the incantations and visualized the magic circle in his head. Immediately, a small magic circle appeared in his palm and flames started to form into a circular shape. Liam's eyes widened as he stared at the fireball in his hands. Even if it was only for once, he could not believe that he has finally used magic. At the same time, a holographic ray shot in the center of the room and suddenly took the shape of a humanoid being. Looking at it, it had the same height as Liam, and its body was made of rock. Nevertheless, it had a large eye in its chest, and its hands were massive. Liam gulped nervously at the sight of this monster. It's called a stone gazer. a creature that mostly spawns in low-grade dungeons and possesses unique powers that far outclass those of ordinary humans and low-rank heroes. The stone gazer fixed its large eyes on Liam. Soon, those eyes came to life and let out a menacing glow. The stone gazer's body suddenly moved, with its eyes staring down at Liam with strong killing intent. Thump, thump, as the stone gazer began to move, its heavy footsteps echoed throughout the bright room, causing Liam to feel a deep sense of unease. Liam struggled to stand his ground, his body trembling with fear and unease. He tightened his grip on the spear, the familiar weight and texture bringing a small spark of comfort amidst the overwhelming situation. Recalling that his life depended on how he fought suddenly filled him with the zeal he needed. Liam twisted the spear above the ground and started taking bold steps forward, though his body still shivered because of the fear he felt inwardly. Thump, thump, the massive rocky creature suddenly increased the speed at which it was moving. Liam held his spear tightly and sent a sweep towards the rocky feet of the stone gazer. The thick body of the stone gazer blocked the attack and pushed his spear backward, sending Liam several steps back. But Liam did not stop there. He performed the sweep for a second time, this time aiming for the other leg. The stone gazer was not going to stand there and let the pitiful human ruin its life. Its hands expanded swiftly, and it sent them flying vertically toward Liam with the intention to turn him into meat paste. Swoosh! The thick black shadow devoured Liam's figure, warning him of the danger ahead. His eyes widened, and he instinctively moved backward. Immediately, he conjured a fireball and tossed it toward the stone gazer, but the creature deflected it with its other free hand. Liam closed the distance once again and attacked with all he got. He dodged, ducked and attacked so many times, but the thick body of the stone gazer made it difficult for his weapons to penetrate. Liam moved backward and stared at the stone gazer. All parts of its body are made of rocks. My attacks won't work. The only place I can think of attacking to render it weak and easy to defeat is its eyes. Yes, I can do that. He immediately acted on his thoughts and sprinted toward the stone gazer. The stone gazer sent its large hand towards him and used its free hand to cover its eyes. It is aware of the danger, damn it. Liam cursed. But in this case, giving up was not an option. His feet clenched on the ground and released as he leapt in for an attack with his spear. Reacting swiftly, the stone gazer employed both hands simultaneously to defend itself. Ah! I've got you now, Liam exclaimed with a triumphant smile. Without hesitating, he conjured a fireball and directed it towards the stone gazer's eyes. The flames erupted in its eyes, causing the creature to retract its hands and shield its eyes and stumble backward. Liam took the opportunity seriously and immediately channeled his mana into a fireball, allowing it to grow in size by increasing the amount of mana he invested in it. The fireball kept expanding until it was the size of a basketball. Liam stared at the stone gazer and then he let go of the fireball. It darted through the air with precision and collided with the hands of the monster, shattering them into large pieces. Liam overcharged another fireball and attacked its eyes with all he had left in him, dealing the last damage and in turn taking the life of the creature. His consciousness disappeared from this world. And then, with a jolt, he regained consciousness in the real world. His eyes blinked open, adjusting to the familiar surroundings of his room. Sweat trickled down his forehead, and he looked around. There was no floating window in front of him. For a moment he almost thought all that experience was a dream, especially when he saw his painful memories, used his first magic, and even defeated a monster. He almost thought those were fake reality triggered by his strong will to become stronger until a floating window appeared in front of him. System has merged with your body. Your dantian has been repaired and your mana core has formed. There is more to inherit in the future, host. All you need to do is perform well with the granted inheritances, and other sovereigns may consider making you their heir as well. Utilize the ancestral heir system like a prince, for you are already a unique being in this world. Stand at the peak of this world and make the watching sovereigns proud. Liam's eyes widened in surprise as he stared at the window in disbelief. It was almost too good to be true. However, his astonishment quickly turned to awe as 5 bundles of $10,000 cash appeared in his hands. confirming that the system and its rewards were indeed real. The methods, chants, and spell models of all the skills also appeared in his head. The fireball skill was different from the one he had used in the dungeon, just as the system had said. With this system, I can achieve everything I ever wanted, he muttered to himself with fist clenched into a punch. He tilted his head towards Bella lying on the bed. This time his expression wasn't that sad because there is hope, and this hope wasn't weak at all. I will use this newfound system to the fullest. I would get my revenge on Crownwealth clan. Bella would be whole once again, and I can stand at the apex of this world. His goals are simple. In the past he has taken the beggar's share of everything that the world has to offer, but now he wanted to make things change. The king's share won't be enough. Liam Winchester wanted to become the one giving instead. He called for his character statue's wisdom, and it appeared in front of him. Host: Liam Winchester. Level 1, 0-10 XP mana. 0-100 health. 100% rank. 0 star worth. $50,000 Flame Emperor skills. Flame mana perception. Fireball. Martial King skills. Flash steps. Punch like a king. Business God skills. Money doubler. Business mindset. He only stared at the system window once to get all the information there is to get. The percent box behind each inheritance has to do with how much of the powers he has comprehended. It was only 1% of these powers, and yet he felt so confident inwardly. Then how would it feel to have 100%? With the help of the Uldra Nation Medical Service, he was able to take Bella to a good but low-rated hospital. The doctor there was only a 3-star healer, but that was still preferable. He used all the money he had on him to pay for Oxy 689, a machine that would keep her stable in that state. The machine doesn't determine that the patient would live. If they get to a certain point, they might die. Thus Liam knew he has to be fast as possible in order to make everything right. He stared at Bella for a few seconds in the hospital bed before leaving. $50,000 would only be enough for one day. The doctor was kind enough to give him 2 free days so that he can use his time very well. Chapter name: Too arrogant. This world became like this 100 years ago in the year 2023. It first started when a portal appeared in the skies and poured out extraterrestrials and demons from the lowest faction of hell to raid and cause chaos on the earth. Nevertheless, heroes rose from the shadows and saved the earth from that doom. But the chaos did not end. Every single day more than 1,000 dungeon appears in each country. It is the job of the heroes to venture into these dungeons and slay the monsters inside. Currently, the richest people in the world are heroes, especially the high-ranking ones. To become a hero and get the chance to venture into dungeons, I must first get my identity registered in CGH, but who knows, they might not even accept me because of my identity, but there is no harm in trying. Liam thought to himself. He used the last $5 he had on him to board a cab to Freya City, the capital city of Uldra Nation and also the place where CGH is located. It wasn't that far from the hospital. The car stopped in front of a beautiful dome-shaped glass house of enormous size. Look like at it was like looking at more than 10 streets merged together. He stared at the structure for a few seconds, contemplating in his heart, but then he shook his head, washing off all the negative thoughts. He walked toward the entrance. A scanner on the door scanned his face to see if he was really human or a monster taking the form of a human. It opened automatically after confirming that he was human. Liam stepped his feet inside the large building and was shocked with the beauty of the inside. Nevertheless, his entrance soon drew the attention of others. They stared at him weirdly. Another trash. Sigh, when will all these trash stop coming to CGH? They are wasting our useful time. Look at his clothes, it's easy to tell that he is one of those street beggars. Send him out immediately. I can't be under the same roof with such a disgusting person. Humph. Those people talking behind his back did not even care if he heard them or not. They didn't even try to lower their voice. They looked at Liam with so much disgust in their eyes. To them he was just a beggar. The fact that he was wearing torn clothes even proves them right. Just then the door opened and a young man the same age as Liam walked in. He was wearing branded clothes worth thousands of dollars. 2 guards with big body build walked behind him. Isn't that Jason Larry, the son of the Blazing Sun King? It's him. To think that he would come to CGH today. Jason acted smugly. When he heard everyone singing his name, his eyes turned towards Liam and saw him standing with a calm look on his face. He observed his clothes and hissed, "Send that bastard out of this place." He said to his guards. They nodded their head respectfully and walked toward Liam. "Young man, leave immediately. Young Master Jason can't be in the same roof as you. Leave peacefully, or we would be forced to send you out our own way." Liam tilted his head toward the two men with large build. It was only then that he noticed Jason Larry. He knew who he was immediately. "I am here to register. Why should I leave?" Liam gave his short answer. "Humph, register my foot. Young Master Jason is here to register as well. You don't expect him to register at the same time with a beggar like you. I was here before him and I'm not even complaining. If he wants to register first, he can go ahead. I'll wait and register after." "Who do you think you are? Hope you know who his father is? The blazing king of Uldra Nation. Better do as we say and avoid future trouble." Liam sighed inwardly. He looked around and saw that everyone was looking at him with disgust in their eyes. "If I keep arguing further, I won't even get the chance to register. If I don't register, there would be no way to make money to treat Bella or even grow my powers. Okay, I would leave." After contemplating for some time, he decided to leave. He turned his back, but then Jason called out for him. "Wait, who said you can leave after delaying me? Come over here and bow to me before you leave." "Damn, this dickhead bastard won't let this rest. I'm here to get my hero card and leave. You're here for the same thing, so why not get it and leave as well?" He cussed inwardly. Just as he was about to give his reply, another voice came from the entrance. "Jason, aren't you full of yourself?" Everyone tilted their heads to take a look at the speaker who had the guts to speak against Jason. However, when they saw the speaker, their mouths immediately tightened, refusing to let out a single word. The speaker was none other than Sasha Larry, Jason's older sister. She was just 18 and she was already a 2-star magic user. "Sasha, what are you doing here? Why are you speaking for that beggar?" Jason gritted his teeth and asked. "Who said I'm speaking for him?" Sasha retorted. "If you're here to register, just go on with it and stop making a scene, or else I'll send you out." Liam stood at the side, watching the two siblings argue with each other. No one would even be able to tell they were siblings with the way they argued. "Humph, Sasha, if you can stay in a place like this with a beggar like that bastard, then I want you to know that I can't. Humph, I want him out of this place. But first, he has to bow to me and lick my shoes." Sasha snorted at Jason. She didn't even reply and walked toward Liam, who was about the same age as her. "You're here to register, right? Come with me." She took Liam's hand and started leading him toward the escalator. Jason gritted his teeth and sent his 2 guards to stop Sasha. "Young miss, please wait. Let that young beggar apologize to young Master Jason," they said as they placed their hands on her shoulder. Nevertheless, they started shivering when she glared at them and immediately took their hands away from her body. "Sister, you're standing up for a beggar instead of your own brother. I won't let you." Nevertheless, before he could even complete his statement, Sasha arrived in front of him, her eyes filled with a mix of disappointment and anger. Without a second thought, she swiftly raised her hand and delivered a resounding slap across Jason's face. The force of the slap sent him sprawling to the ground. Jason held his cheek, momentarily stunned by the impact of the slap. "How dare you?" he yelled, his voice trembling with anger. "You dare to raise your hand against me? And all for this beggar." Liam, who had been observing the tense exchange, remained composed despite the insults hurled his way. He knew better than to engage in such provocation. Instead, he turned his attention to Sasha, concerned for her well-being. Ignoring Jason's curses, Sasha turned her gaze to Liam, her voice firm yet tinged with concern. "Let's go. We don't need to waste any more time here." Everyone in the hall stared at Jason with pity in their eyes. None of them dared to get closer. Jason's guards gained their senses back after Sasha left with Liam and immediately rushed to help Jason up. "Young Master Jason, are you hurt anywhere?" they asked with care. "Leave me alone, you damn lowlifes." Jason gritted his teeth at them and stood up. He walked out of the place with deep hatred and anger in his face. He entered his multimillion car and drove away, leaving his guards outside CGH. Stranded. "What's your name?" Sasha asked Liam as she led him into the registration room. Liam. Liam only gave her his first name. Liam, Sasha repeated, nodding. Nice to meet you, Liam. I apologize for my brother's behavior. He can be difficult at times. Liam smiled faintly. It's all right. I'm used to people judging me based on my appearance. Thank you for standing up for me. Sasha's expression softened, and she placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. No one should be treated that way, especially when they're here for the same reason as everyone else. We all have our own goals and dreams. They arrived at the registration room, where a lady in her late 20s was waiting. She had a stern expression on her face, and her eyes scanned Liam critically. When the lady saw Sasha, she smiled sweetly at her and greeted her, but when she saw Liam, her face turned stern and unfriendly. Mrs. Evelyn, he is here to register. Liam, she would take care of everything from here on. I have a meeting with someone. She waved at Liam and then left, leaving him alone with Evelyn. After Sasha left, Evelyn's expression became really unfriendly. Why do you think someone as lowly as you would awaken abilities? I don't understand why Miss Sasha bother to assist beggars like you. Evelyn said to Liam with a very harsh tone in her voice. Chapter name. Twist. Why do you think someone as lowly as you would awaken abilities? I don't understand why Miss Sasha bother to assist beggars like you. Evelyn said to Liam with a very harsh tone in her voice. And don't think that I will treat you different just because she brought you. Get that in your head, all right? Despite the harshness in Evelyn's tone, Liam maintained his composure, refusing to let her words deter him. He is doing all these for Bella and won't stop or make unnecessary trouble till his little sister is healed. Without uttering a word, Evelyn stood on her heel and walked briskly towards a nearby door. Liam followed suit, his steps determined and his mind focused on the task at hand. Entering the room, Liam's eyes were immediately drawn to the center, where a transparent crystal orb sat atop a glass box. Liam stared at it for a few seconds, but he felt as thought there was nothing different about the orb. That over there is the Enigma orb. Once you place your hands on them, it would be able to tell what kind of mana flows through your body. The intensity of the glow would determine how much good you are with that mana. If you have no ability, it would keep his transparent state. Evelyn explained with a cold tone, then she tilted her head towards him and added in a harsh tone. I don't know why I have to explain this to you. It's not like a beggar like you would awaken abilities. Go over there and place both hands on it. Liam nodded his head slowly and walked confidently toward the Enigma orb. His confidence pissed Evelyn off. She felt that he was just using that confident walk of his to fool her. I can't wait to see the scared look on your face when you find out you have no abilities. Beggars like you deserve to serve those in power with all your life, she thought to herself. Meanwhile, Liam placed his hands on the orb and waited for reactions. After 10 seconds, there was no reaction from the Enigma orb. 30 seconds passed, and there was still no reactions from it. Nevertheless, even with this, Liam was not discouraged. Humph, I said it, you have no abilities. Take your stinking hands off the orb now. She was about to rush him to take his hands off when the room was suddenly engulfed in a very intense orange glow. The glow was so bright that it almost blinded her eyes. In fact, she even had to use her hands to cover her eyes to prevent the intensity from blinding her. Liam stood tall with his hands on the Enigma orb. Right now, he did not look like a beggar but more like a flame warrior standing in the midst of intense flames unharmed. This amount of glow, how? Evelyn was puzzled. She have worked with CGH for over 10 years now. In her years of service, she hasn't seen anyone with a capability to make the Enigma orb shine so brightly. Nevertheless, he is still a beggar, humph. A beggar with luck won't change anything, she assured herself. Take your stinking hands off the orb before you dirty it with poverty. You were lucky to pass the first test. Let's see how you would act in the second test. She snorted and led him towards another door in the same room. After walking past the door, they arrived in a room with pure white color. Humph! Turn on newbie trail simulation, Evelyn commanded. Immediately the white in the room began transforming into myriad of colors, and then suddenly the scenario changed. Right now it was as though he was in a cave. This is the trail to test your courage, skills, wits, and other stuffs required from a hero. You would be greeted with a set of monsters soon. All you have to do is survive their attacks for 10 minutes. Nevertheless, if you can kill them, you would have more chances to become a hero. I know it's impossible for a trash like you to do it. Let's see how you fare against them, Evelyn explained. Liam tilted his head behind him, but Evelyn was nowhere to be found. It was though she wasn't even there in the first place. Just then, 3 monstrous beings walked out of a certain opening. They have humanoid figures, but they lack flesh. Skeletons. Liam subconsciously let out with a sharp glow in his eyes. He stared at the 3 skeletons walking towards him with confidence. He didn't even hesitate to attack. He balled his hands into a fist and dashed towards the skeletons with speed that far outmatched the speed limit of normal human. Evelyn was observing everything from a small rectangular screen. Her eyes widened in shock when she saw the person she called lowly beggar moving with so much speed. He is trying to kill the skeletons, damn. Is he really a beggar? Even some noble kids peed their pants when they saw these skeletons, but yet. Liam's body moved speedily, and in a matter of seconds, he closed the long distance between himself and the skeletons. His hands moved in the air so fast that no one noticed them. Just after his hand movement, 2 skeletons shattered and fell on the ground. Now left with one that held a bone axe. The skeleton lifted its axe and waved it towards Liam. Hee. Now he is in a difficult position. I knew he would fail right from the beginning. Wait, he. She was about to express delight in his defeat that was certain, but then she was greeted with a splendid scene as Liam suddenly waved his hands and shattered the bone axe. Then he sent a sweep kick toward the chest bone of the skeleton, rendering it useless at once. Liam stared at his own hands with a bright smile. Is this the trail of CGH? I thought it would something more difficult to defeat than the Stonegazers. Turns out it was just a pile of moving bones. Oh, I even managed to unlock another skill. I'll check it out later, he thought with a smile on his face. Just then the room turned white again. Evelyn was standing beside him with a puzzled expression on her face, still unable to release herself from the shocking scene just now. Hey! Liam waved his hands in front of her eyes, bringing her out of her puzzlement. Oh, you're done. Wait. No, come with me. She was so shocked that she found it difficult to let out a sentence without stammering. Both of them walked out of the room. She led him towards another room and imputed few details on the 8th generation computer used in CGH. Your name is Liam. What's your surname? She asked with a calm and friendly tone. Liam was surprised, but he answered her still. Winchester. When Evelyn heard that name, she looked up at him with questioning eyes. Are you in any way related to Othello Winchester? Yes, he is my father. Oh, the son of the weak hero that got thrown out of Crownwealth clan. To think I would meet that popular cursed child, but he wasn't cursed at all. She imputed the details while running wild in her own jungle of thoughts. Here is your hero card. She passed his hero card to him. Liam took the card and stared at details. Name: Liam Winchester. Hero ID: 239906735. DF rank: 0 star class. Mage. Finally, he has gotten his pass to make money. Is there any dungeon that I can raid currently? I need to raid one as soon as possible, he asked Evelyn. Since you are still a 0-star hero, you can only go on 1-star and 2-star expenditure. Nevertheless, you have to go with a group or get a fellow teammate who must have 1-star ranking and above. I can help you join a raiding team if you want. Evelyn now spoke with a smile. She became extremely friendly toward him after seeing how strong he was. She scrolled down a list of pending expenditure and picked one. She asked for his hero ID and imputed it, registering Liam for the expenditure in a newly opened 1-star dungeon in Blissful Star City. Then she gave him his card. There is a pending expenditure in Blissing Star City. 3 of you would be going on the expenditure together. You are the last member, so you have to rush there immediately. Wish you good luck. Thank you. Anyway, be kind enough to pass my gratitude to Ms. Sasha. Liam let out coolly and turned his back to leave. Then he recalled something. He has no money on him to pay for his tea fare, and Blissing Star City is a 30 minutes drive away from CGH. Evelyn immediately understood the reason behind his change of expression. We have a free transport service, you can make use of it. Liam nodded his head and let out a sigh afterwards. I have to make money as soon as possible. I can't keep leaving on the mercies and kindness of others. Chapter name: Choice. Liam arrived in a beautiful part of CGH. It was a place assigned to those who planned to use the special transportation of CGH. It was a train that runs on a railway connected in the air. Liam, here is it. I have already arranged for your ride. The train will stop at the exact location, but you have to wait 10 minutes for the next ride to begin. Evelyn said to him with a sweet smile. Liam nodded his head and walked inside the train. There are other heroes inside the train. Most of them are around the same age or younger than Liam. When has CGH started using the aero trains to transport beggars? All of them tilted their heads towards him and said bad words. They judged him immediately because of his appearance. He was wearing tattered clothes, and his shoes were clearly worn out, only holding on because of the tiny piece of threads holding them together. Liam decided not to reply any of them. He searched for a vacant seat. He found one at the middle of the train and walked towards it. You don't come near me, you stink. Damn lowlifes, how would they get the money to buy soap when all they care about is begging for food? Now they are even begging for transportation. A rude girl left a remark after Liam walked past her. Liam tilted his eyes backward to take a look at her. She wasn't that good looking and her face was filled with too much makeups. She looked scary rather than beautiful. The only good thing about her was her expensive clothes and shoes. Who are you looking at, bastard? She got agitated and stood up from her chair, rushing to hit him. Liam felt her coming closer and moved aside, swiftly causing her to fall down face first to the ground. Then he continued walking without bothering to take a second look at her ugly face. How dare you? You got a free ride because you are so poor and helpless, and now you are acting like you are worth something. I'll report this and make sure you don't leave this place. She yelled after standing up. The others seated in the train minded their own business. Most of them are going on their first expenditure and they won't like to spoil it with drama. The girl was still yelling when a young man wearing a full silver suit walked in and snatched the card she was holding. You're too noisy. Get off this train. I can't take someone as noisy as you. He turned out to be the train driver. The girl wanted to yell again and boast about her father, but he wasn't buying it. He grabbed her by the hair and took her out of the train. Then he went to his special seat at the front of the train. The ride is going to be super fast, so please put on your seatbelts. If this is your first ride, don't worry, nothing bad is going to happen, he announced. Everyone nodded, including those who had ridden the train before. Liam found it difficult to use the seatbelt at first, but he looked at others and learned to fasten his. The train powered up with a mechanical voice announcing the departure countdown. Engines ready at full integrity. Ready to boost in 3.2.1. Immediately after the countdown, the aero train shot forward at full speed, swiftly leaving the station and soaring through the skies of CGH in the special railway, offering a breathtaking experience to its passengers. The ride was super fast. It was almost 10 times faster than normal land trains, and in just 2 minutes it stopped at his first point to drop off for newbie heroes in a dungeon. After 2 more stops it got to Liam's. He looked for a special key in the seat he was and clicked it twice. Beneath him a hole formed and his chair descended through it. He landed on the ground and left the chair. It went back up himself and the aero train continued its journey. Liam found himself in front of a young man and young lady who he guessed are his teammate for the expenditure. Also there was a big structure that has the shape of H, and in front of it, there is a spinning portal. You are Liam, right? The young lady asked him coldly, and he nodded in response. My name is Clara. I'm the leader in this expenditure, and you have to obey all my orders if you want to survive. My class is mage, and I can use ice magic. This is my brother Leonardo. He is a mage as well. Let's go. We don't have any more time to spare chatting, she said. She was rather friendly. Leonardo let out a scoff and muttered weak. But Liam wasn't concerned. He readied himself and joined the 2 siblings as they walked into the portal, which automatically sent them to another location. The dungeon they arrived in was dimly lit, with crystals lining the stone walls. Faint echoes of distant sounds could be heard, adding quite an eerie atmosphere. You have entered an untitled dungeon. Objective, survive. Liam heard a loud voice which sounded like a robot announcing their arrival. Since it was his first time in a dungeon, he was kind of confused, so he turned to Clara. Clara saw the curious look in his eyes and let out a loud sigh. That voice you just heard is called the Other Voice, Clara explained to Liam. It's more like an artificial intelligence that oversees dungeons like this one. It gives us a brief overview of the dungeon and sets our objective. In this case, our objective is simply to survive the challenges that lie ahead. Wait, you don't know these details and you dare to step into a dungeon. You see, Clara, I told you most of those lowlifes just earn their hero card just so they can die. This bastard is no exception. Leonardo commented. Leo, you were the same on your first hunt. In fact, he behaved more maturely than you on your first trial, I recall, when you almost shit your pant. I can reveal more if you want. Sasha refuted coldly at Leonardo. She didn't spare him even though he was her little brother. Leonardo's eyes rolled back. He felt really hurt that his sister failed to join side with him in this matter. Okay now, everyone, let's focus. We're not in the comfort of our homes but in the midst of an expenditure. Failure means automatic death and nobody wants to die. Clara cleared the air with her words. Liam and Leonardo nodded and stared in front of them and saw two openings leading to different part of the dungeon. These openings have name tags on them. One has the tag and the other has the tag, which directly translates to easy and hard. Leonardo was the first to voice out his opinion. We should take the hard route. You know, dungeons are full of surprises and traps, and this one is no different. It will say easy, meanwhile it has the most difficult monsters to defeat. Liam stared at the two opening and thought, I don't have a say in this, but I think Leo is right. You have a valid points, Clara said, pausing to assess their surroundings once more. We cannot underestimate the dungeon's challenges, but rushing into the hardest path might be reckless. We must choose wisely to ensure our survival. After so much thought, the three of them decided to take the easy path and started walking towards it. They got close to the opening and walked past it. Immediately after crossing the line that divided this part of the cave from the rest, a large rock boulder fell out of nowhere and blocked the entrance. The sudden change frightened the hell out of Leonardo, who tried to act bold on the outside, but inside his heart was beating like mad. The three of them stared at the large boulder with confused eyes. You chose the path, and you must complete all the challenges to survive. There is no going back after this choice, and the challenge that awaits you will determine your fate. Other voice sounded again, announcing another major change in their expenditure. Clara had been on the highest number of expenditures, but she had never encountered anyone like this before. She gulped nervously and signaled for the two of them to walk faster. Soon, they reached the end of the route and were greeted by the face of a monster grinning at them. Chapter name: Slade. Behold, in front of them stood a monster twice as tall as the tallest among them. It has a smaller body and a very large head that has a bony structure. Its eyes were blazing red and they stared down at the three of them with mischief. The sight elated three of them and they immediately moved backward to take a proper look at the position they found themselves. After crossing the route, they found themselves in this small compartment. It was as wide as 10 living rooms combined together, and there were 3 other monsters having the same appearance as the first. Clara, we are doomed, Leonardo yelled out of fear. Right now he was shivering like sometimes who has just been taken out of a freezer. That's a dome skull, a fucking dome skull. Clara, this is all your fault. I told you we should take the other route. Now we are all going to die. Shut up, Leonardo. No one is going to die. Clara shot a glare at Leonardo. She turned to look at Liam and saw him staring at the monsters with no fear in his eyes. Sometimes ignorance is better. He sure doesn't know what kind of enemy he is going to face. She thought to herself. Growl. The dome skull grew bored at the puny behavior of the humans standing in front of them. They expected a fight, but it seems these humans aren't even human enough to fight. Clara brought out a magic wand from the small bag tied around her waist and began to chant a spell. In front of the wand, a magic circle appeared and then formed into tiny speckles of ice shards. Release, she yelled. The speckles of ice shards shot at the first dome skull at a rapid speed and closed the distance almost immediately due to the shortness. The ice shards collided with the bony head of the dome skull, but it shattered and fell to the ground. When Clara saw this, her eyes widened in shock. That was one of her best spells so far, and yet it failed to work. The dome skull stared at her with deep hatred, and then it opened its large mouth. In front of its mouth a magic circle was formed, and it immediately turned into ice shards exactly like the one Clara just used. It's copying her spells. Liam pondered. He looked at Clara and saw her frightened on the spot, then immediately rushed towards her. The ice shards collided with the ground and shattered. It was moving at such a speed that if it had met Clara she would be nothing but dead by now. Liam placed her down on the ground close to Leonardo, who was shivering from fear. It seems I have to act myself, Liam thought to himself and walked in front of the two of them. The 7 dome skulls in the room stared at Liam with some sort of funny expressions. Among human in the room, Liam is the weakest, but in terms of courage it seems the human boy has some balls standing in front of them and staring at them like that. Growl! The first dome skull let out a growl and started running towards them. Leonardo saw this and his will to stand weakened. He knelt on the ground and stared at the incoming monster with fear. Clara, we are going to die. Clara managed to stand her ground even though she was afraid. She used her ice magic to summon a sword and held the sword in her hands, ready to defend. But the dome skull wasn't giving the human any chance to defend themselves. It was already getting bored with their presence and was ready to kill them at once. Growl! It growled once again and stretched its hands to swipe the humans away. Its hands are very large and each digit has a sharp claw at its end, making it more dangerous. Its hands closed down on the 3 of them speedily. Boom! The sound of something colliding against another reverberated in the dungeon. The impact sent a shockwave rattling through the dungeon. Clara and Leonardo shut their eyes tightly, fearing that it would be the end of them, but seconds passed and they didn't even feel anything, not even a scratch on their skin. They opened their eyes and behold an astounding sight of Liam pummeling the dome skull that attacked them earlier. Liam stood on the bony head of the dome skull and rained punches after punched on its skull. The blood from the monsters bathed the body of Liam, but Liam wasn't going to stop and kept on punching the monster till his system gave him a notification that the monster was dead. The other dome skulls stared at Liam with expression showing how shocked they were. Inside this dungeon, they aren't the only one shocked with Liam's display of power. Even Clara, who immediately took the position of leader, and Leonardo, who felt that all lowlifes are weak, was shocked as well. But the truth is Liam just wanted to survive. He doesn't want to die. At least not now that Bella is in the hospital, mindlessly hoping that someday someone would heal her. He clenched his fist and stared at the other dome skulls still standing. His eyes gave off a sinister glow and immediately his body vaulted speedily from his position. He was using the skill from the Martial King inheritance. He closed the distance with one of the dome skull. His body sprang up toward the head of the beast while his muscles stretched in a strange pattern. He landed a punch on the face of the dome skull, immediately sending the monster flying backward, landing on the body of another dome skull standing idling, watching the astounding scene unfolding in front of him. Liam landed on the ground and shot forward again. His hands clenched tightly into a fist and punched at the bony head of the doom skulls on the ground. He sent another punch at the one that fell from the collision, slaying 2 of them at once. Liam was like a killing machine, sprinting through the room and slaying the dome skulls tirelessly till only 1 dome skull was left. He broke the bony head structure of the dome skull and immediately used his fireball magic to burn the head of the dome skull. Clara and Leonardo stood in one spot staring at Liam with shock clearly showing in their eyes. Just now Liam's image changed from the poor and stupid lowlife to a strong characters like the knight in shining armor, saving them from the danger. Dash, you've completed the first phase of the challenge. Other voice announced, and her voice was the only entity right now that managed to break the expressions of the siblings. You killed all the dome skulls. How? Leonardo was confused. He saw Liam killing those monsters with his own eyes, but that was impossible. How can someone like him, a lowlife like him, even his clothes stinks of dirt and poverty. His clothes are torn and his shoes was almost at the end of its lifespan. In a world where the wealthy have access to power, a lowlife showing that much prowess was almost impossible, but yet Liam displayed that prowess. Liam stared at the corpse of the dome skull without even bothering to answer Leonardo. I thought it was going to bring out a core that can be sold for money. Where is there none of them even after killing 7 dome skulls? He asked himself. Hey Clara. It's not bringing out any monster core. Does that mean it doesn't have monster core? He asked Clara. Clara shook her head. You have to dig into the head of the monsters you slay to bring out the monster core. Wait, let me do it for you. Clara placed her hand in her small bag and brought out a dagger. She climbed on the head of the closest dome skulls and pierced the dagger in it. She dug into the skull of the dome skull until the tip of her dagger touched something really hard. After much digging, she placed her hand in the small hole and brought out a shiny crystal object which gave off a faint red glow. She went to the other ones and dug out more monster cores. Each dome skull had only 1 monster core in them, and that resulted in 7 monster cores altogether. Chapter name. Monster cores are the immediate benefits gained from slaying monsters. These monster cores hold more value than you can imagine, despite coming from the same entities whose only goal is to destroy the earth. Liam looked at the monster cores. He knew only so much about them. This was his first time seeing one, but not his first time hearing about it. "How can I use that to make money?" he asked Clara. "You can sell it to CGH or those who need it. One of these monster cores can sell for at least $10,000 or more, depending on the market rate," she explained. "Oh, so cheap. For this type of monster core, yes. But other monster cores from stronger monsters should sell for about 1 million to 1 billion per core. This one is barely a 1-star grade, so it has a very cheap price in the market." Liam placed his hand on his chin and thought, then I have to slay more monsters and make money quickly. I still need to pay for Oxy 689 every day. I can't laze around now. "Hey, now that we are done with this phase of the challenge, what are we going to do next?" he asked Clara. "There is always a hidden path here. We have to find it and move on to the next phase. But don't you want to rest? You should have drained your strength too much after that fight. I have a quick healing potion. You can take it." "No need. Start looking for the next path immediately. We don't have time to waste sitting around. Tell your brother to start working too." Liam's voice was commanding. At this moment, he silently claimed the title of the leader of this expedition. Clara gulped nervously, nodded her head, and then turned to look at her brother, who kept staring at Liam surprisingly, as though he had just seen a ghost. She inwardly hissed and trotted toward where he stood, slapping his face to bring him back to reality. Leonardo shook after the slap and set his hands in a defensive position, his eyes roving the room like a thief running from the cops. "Get yourself together. We have to move on from here unless we want something scarier than the dome skulls." After searching for over a minute, they finally found a small door hidden in the walls. They unlocked it with brute strength, and the three of them walked past it, arriving in the other part of the dungeon. This part of the dungeon had a colder temperature than the other parts they had been to. It was narrower in width compared to the previous one, but here they could hear the eerie sound louder. They inspected the dungeon, but they saw nothing. Nonetheless, they could hear the clattering sounds that sounded like a monster moving speedily across the place. Just then, a strange figure flashed before their eyes, moving too fast to follow. Leonardo shivered in fear and clung tighter to Liam. Clara had a spell ready in her hands, while Liam focused more on the surroundings, noticing every slight movement he could. At that moment, two strange figures flashed past them again, a little closer this time. They felt the breeze blow past their faces. "It's playing with us. We have to be careful. Monsters like this are usually tricky and hard to defeat. They are mostly—" "Ah, Leonardo, on your side," Clara warned. However, before she could complete her sentence, she saw something that caused her to yell out, alerting the others. It was a dome skull with stranger and bigger features than the first ones they faced in the previous part. It was standing really close to Leonardo, and its mouth was wide open in a swallowing position. It was about to swallow Leonardo. Leonardo leapt from his position, creating a small gap between himself and the monster. Clara immediately sprang into action and shot the ice shard spell she had been preparing inside the mouth of the dome skull. The ice shards swiftly reached the dome skull's open mouth, causing the monster to roar in pain as the sharp edges pierced its fleshy tongue. Liam used the distraction to quickly move Leonardo away from it, while Clara prepared another ice magic spell. "Get yourself together," Liam yelled at Leonardo, who had been nothing more than a liability since they met. He couldn't even defend himself from simple attacks, and all he did was shiver whenever there was a new monster around. Clara shot more ice shards at the dome skulls while moving backward to evade any sudden attack from it. "Damn it! I'm running out of mana to power up my spells," she cursed as she tossed out yet another ice shard. The dome skull growled angrily at her, but this time she did not freeze in fear like before. She had learned a lot from Liam's show of courage in the previous battle and wasn't going to back down. She took another step back and tossed the last of her dark shards at the dome skull, but she missed a step and was about to fall. But just then, Liam arrived behind her and prevented her from falling. He looked at her with a serious expression and said, "This dome skull looks stronger, and it's faster too. Do you have any spell that can hold it in place for a while so I can attack?" "Yes, but you have to buy me some time. The spell is hard to activate and would take more than 1 minute," she replied. Liam looked at the dome skull. It was stronger but didn't seem as active as the first ones. It hadn't even responded to the spells thrown at it like the first one. 1 minute? Be fast. Okay. Please be careful. Liam nodded at her and leaped toward the dome skull. His hands already balled into fists, prepared to rain down punches on the dome skull. However, the dome skull wasn't ready to be killed. It opened its mouth wide in Liam's direction. Liam thought it was just a pose for eating, but he was far from the truth because at that moment, a ball of purple-colored energy started forming in its mouth. His eyes widened in shock when he saw this. This was his first time in a dungeon, and he hadn't done his homework about monsters because he didn't have the time. He had always thought that only dragons and drakes could use magic with their mouths because they were naturally flame-spitting monsters. He was midair and didn't know how to fly to evade the attack. To make matters worse, he was just a few meters away and was involuntarily closing the distance at an uncontrollable speed. Is this how I am going to die? Chapter name: Weakness. Is this how I'm going to die? Only that thought crossed his mind right now. He was just a few meters away from his death, just a few seconds from now that energy beam would be fired at him, and the only result would be death. There was no saving it now, but Liam recalled that there is someone relying on him. He quickly placed his hands in front of his face, even if he knew it was useless against such a powerful power beam. Meanwhile, the dome skulls kept powering up the energy beam it was holding in its mouth. It was getting really close to shooting it at Liam. But at that moment, the ground beneath it froze up, sending a chilling feels up its large body. It looked at its feet and saw the large mass of ice he was standing on top. Its monstrous eyes stared at the ice in confusion as though he was asking, "How did this suddenly appear here?" "Liam, here is your chance." Clara alerted Liam immediately. Liam removed the hands blocking his face and saw that the dome skull was no longer aiming at him. This gave him the opportunity he needed. He landed on the broad shoulder of the dome skull and did a backflip to have a safe landing behind it. Growl, the dome skull growled frustratingly. Its feet was buried in the ice and the dome skull found it extreme difficult to draw it out, which resulted in the frustrated growl. Liam landed behind the dome skull and heaved several large sighs to catch his breath. After catching his breath, he turned his attention back on the battle and noticed the dome skull struggling to free its feet from the ice. This was the perfect opportunity to strike, but he needed something really hard and other to take down this dome skull because punch won't do. He took a moment to assess his surroundings and saw a mass of ice that Clara had conjured with her magic. This piece of ice was especially thin, with a pointy end facing upward. It was just what Liam is looking for. Using the distraction, Liam sprinted towards the ice and broke it with a punch. He grabbed the pointy part, grasping it tightly in his hands, trying his best to withstand the cold temperature and the slippery feels. Clara was fueling the frost trap with her mana, and her mana reserve was slowly draining out due to this. She looked at Liam and prayed that he act quickly before she run out of mana. It was then that Liam held the ice with sharp pointing end. He held it like someone who was about to throw a dart and let go of the ice. The ice gave a loud swooshing sound as it closed the distance. It pierced the neck of the dome skull and dug deeper into its flesh. Nevertheless, that was still not enough to kill the monster. Leonardo, who has been standing in a corner ever since, suddenly felt energetic. He brought out 2 daggers from his pocket and ran toward the dome skull.
Fucking Domeskulz, you fucking monster.
He kept yelling as he closed the distance. He reached the monster after falling twice die to the icy ground. He held his 2 daggers and pierced it into the leg of the dome skulls. The dome skull yelled and was about to pound Leonardo with its large hands when Liam arrived and held its hands back even if it hurt him a little bit. "You can do this, Leo." Liam yelled at him. Leonardo looked at Liam, who was struggling to hold the hands of the dome skull. "Yes, I can do it. I can fucking do it." Leonardo yelled out loud and repeatedly pierced the same spot on the dome skull. The dome skull let out several growls of pain and frustration. It tried moving his hands, but it was caught in Liam's tight grasp. He tried moving his feet, but it was buried in the frost trap. It opened its mouth and started powering up another energy beam. "Shut your mouth, you dirty monster!" Leonard yelled out. Leonardo continued stabbing the dome skull with determination while yelling loudly to wash off the fear. He knew that the energy beam is destructive, so he kept trying to prevent it from firing another energy beam. Clara focused all her remaining mana to strengthen the frost trap, making it even harder for the dome skull to move its feet. Her hand has gone numb from holding it in a position for too long, but she swallowed the pain inside because the survival of everyone depend on how long she holds the frost trap. Liam kept holding the hands of the dome skull despite the pain in his hands from restraining the dome skull's powerful grip. "Leonardo, we are going to die if you don't act fast. I'm losing my grip on it." "I thought you could use magic too? Use your spells. Anyone that can take this monster out." When Leonardo heard that, he suddenly came to a realization that he was a magic warrior. "Yes, I am a proud magic warrior." He yelled and focused his eyes on his dagger. The dagger started to glow brightly as mana flowed through them. The mana increased the attack power of the dagger and also increased Leonardo's speed of using them. Leo grinned confidently and wrapped his two hands on the daggers. "Take this." He thrust the charged weapon at the dome skull. The charged weapons bore through the hardened skin and created a large dent. Leonard did not stop there. He placed his feet on the dome skull's knees and used the support to throw himself up to the height of the dome skull's head. With determination, he pierced the dagger through the large head, causing the dome skull to fall to the ground lifelessly, while its blood dyed the ice red. As the lifeless dome skull fell to the ground, the three of them collapsed on the icy terrain, taking in deep breaths to keep their body stable after exhausting it on the last dome skull. Their bodies were exhausted, but their hearts were filled with delight that they had survived such a deadly encounter. Leonard sat up and stared at the dagger in his hands. A delighted expression appeared on his face. "I did it! I took down the dome skull. Congratulations. You took down the boss and completed the objective. Here is a little reward for completing the challenge. The exit portal is ready. You can exit the dungeon before it disappears in the next 10 minutes. ############################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################### completed the objective. Here's a little reward for completing the challenge. The exit portal is ready. You can exit the dungeon before it disappears in the next 10 minutes. Other voice announced the end of their expenditure. At this moment, these were the words and voice they wanted to hear. Liam leaned on the body of the dome skull, panting to catch his breath. He was exhausted from fighting the dome skull. With the other voice, he was assured that no challenge lay in front of him in this dungeon any more, so he could take his time to rest. After other voice's announcement, a treasure chest fell out of nowhere and landed in the middle of the trio. Liam was the first to notice because he was very close to it. He was confused. Why was there a treasure chest falling out of nowhere? Who sent the treasure chest? What is in the treasure chest? Anyway, he heard other voice talking about rewards. He guessed that was the reward. He stood up and walked to the treasure chest. He placed his hands on the cover and lifted it up. A blinding glow escaped from the chest after he forced it open with his bare hands. The glow was so bright that he had to cover his eyes with his arm until the intensity of the glow decreased. The contents of the chest revealed themselves. Curious about the contents of the treasure chest, Leonardo and Clara walked close and stood beside Liam. That's a magic dagger. It should be around 1-star grade. Looking at it. There is a monster core too. To think that we would find a spare monster core in a treasure chest. We're really lucky. Clara spoke with a bright smile on her face. We should leave before the dungeon collapses. The exit portal has already appeared. Clara informed the others, pointing at the portal that appeared on the walls. I'll hold the items in the treasure chest. We can discuss how we share it once we leave the dungeon. Clara, dig out the monster core from that dome skull. The trio worked together to prepare themselves to leave. After they were done picking up the loot, they walked toward the exit portal and immediately found themselves outside the dungeon. They stood facing the structure that held the entrance portal in the beginning. The portal was nowhere to find and the structure had started to disappear as well. Liam looked at the structure as it disappeared. This was his first expenditure. Thankfully, unlike other newbie heroes, he survived. Soon, a flashy car drove toward their location. It was made of the best metals, it had noiseless engines, and it also had a bright red color. Someone walked out of the driver's seat and bowed toward Leonardo and Clara. He was dressed in a fine suit with a bow tie. He was of middle age and he wore gold-rimmed glasses that gave him a noble look. "Young miss, young master, congratulations for another successful expenditure. Master will be proud if he finds out." He bowed his head and congratulated them politely. Leonardo nodded at him and turned to Clara, who stared at the monster cores in her hands. "Is she want to be honest? Liam did all the job and saved them from death. Liam, you can take all the monster cores. We don't really need them that much." Clara smiled and passed the monster cores to Ethan. Liam looked at the monster cores for a second and stretched his hand to retrieve them. "Thank you." "No need to thank me, you saved us. If it wasn't for you, we would be nothing but carcasses buried in that dungeon. You saved us. You deserve them." "Okay." Liam nodded his head. "Take this, it's a space bag. Although it might appear very little, it can contain items that even the boot of a car would not be able to contain." Liam nodded his head. He placed all the monster cores in the small bag the size of a baby's palm, and to his greatest surprise they all fit in, and it felt weightless in his hands. Leonardo looked at Liam. In the beginning, he saw Liam as nothing but a loser, a scumbag, and a lowlife capable of nothing. He even disrespected him from the beginning and called him names. But still, Liam stood up for him in the dungeon. He saved him and gave him the courage to overcome his fears. "Liam, I like this dagger. I'll keep it, but I'll pay you for it," Leonardo said to Liam. Then he turned to the man standing beside the car. "Spencer, bring me $100,000. "Yes, young master." Spencer bowed his head and then he dragged out a suitcase and brought out a bundle of cash and gave them to Leonardo, who immediately gave it to Liam. Liam looked at the bundles of cash in his hands. It was pretty big, but it was really small compared to what he would be needing to keep Bella in the hospital till he made the complete amount to heal her completely. He placed the bundles of cash in the bag and placed it in his pocket. Then he turned his back and started walking in another direction. "You can come with us, Liam. We are actually going to CGH right now," Leonardo called out to Liam. "No, don't worry. I can find my way back to CGH," Liam replied. At the moment he trusted nobody and only cared about his safety. "That's not the direction of CGH. You will end up getting lost, and you should know that this place is dangerous. There might be robbers on the way waiting to rob you of the monster cores in your pockets." Liam thought about it and decided to go with them. He got in the back seat with Clara while Leonardo sat in the passenger seat. Inside the car, they tried to start up a conversation with Liam, but he was mostly quiet and deep in thought. They wondered why he was like that, but since he refused to talk, they decided to let him be. They got to CGH after a half-hour drive. Liam came out of the car and waved at the two before proceeding into CGH. "I need to sell the monster cores. Evelyn proposed to help me find a buyer who would pay more for the monster cores. I need to find her so she would show me to this seller." Inside CGH, he was treated the same by everybody, but he did not care. Luckily for him, Evelyn was on the first floor, discussing with the receptionist. She saw him walking in and immediately smiled at him. "He survived his first expenditure. He is really different." "How was your first expenditure? What sorts of monsters did you face?" she asked with a smile. "Dome skulls." Liam responded expressionlessly. "He faced dome skulls in his first expenditure and survived?" She looked at him with a confused expression for a second before responding with a smile. "I have some monster cores I would like to sell." "Okay, then come with me. Let me take you to the trading floor. As I promised, I'll find a good buyer who would offer the best price." Evelyn led Ethan to the 13th floor. This floor was busy. Heroes in their expensive armors walked about with smiles, most of them counting cash. He could see two heroes dividing a large amount of cash with one another. Evelyn led him to a young man sitting inside a beautiful kiosk-like structure. He was called Killian. He was really friendly with Liam despite his appearance. Liam brought out the monster cores from the small space bag and gave them to Killian. Killian held the monster cores in his hands and observed them. After evaluating them, he turned to Liam with a bright smile. "1 one-star monster core of high quality, 2 of average quality, and 7 one-star cores of low quality. Since they are from dome skulls, I'll buy the high-quality ones for 50,000, the average-quality ones for 25 each, and the low-quality ones for 10,000. That's a total of $170,000. Will you agree to sell them to me, young man? Yes. Okay. Killian typed some numbers into the system and it brought out 180,000. This is 180,170 for the monster cores. The extra is a token of appreciation for doing business with me. I hope we do more business in the future, young man. Liam placed the cash in his pocket and nodded. Evelyn was no longer with him. She left after introducing him to Killian. But he wasn't bothered about that. He left CGH, he boarded a taxi to his place. However, upon arrival, he was greeted with the face of someone he didn't expect to see. His cousin Frederick, one of the heirs of the Crownwealth clan. The same person who he had seen in the Trail of Emotions, insulting his mother and sending his friends to beat Liam up after learning that Liam had tried to find him following the incident.